The food smells amazing, and I can't wait to meet the caterer. Before you call him your husband, there's something you deserve to know.
My dear friend, before you press play on anything else today, sit with me for a moment. Pour yourself something warm, put your phone on the table, and let me tell you a story that happened not too far from where you are sitting right now. Because what I am about to tell you did not happen in a fairy tale, it happened to a real woman. A woman who woke up one Saturday morning, tied her wrapper around her waist, picked up her cooking spoons, and walked into a wedding hall to serve food for strangers. Only to find out halfway through the ceremony that the groom being celebrated was her own husband. Stay with me, because what she did next will either break your heart or teach you the most powerful lesson you will hear all year. Her name was Ifeoma. She was 34 years old, and if you had met her 5 years earlier, you would not have recognized the woman I am about to describe to you now. Back then, Ifeoma laughed easily. She wore her hair natural and full, she danced at every party, and she believed, truly believed, that love, if you were patient with it, always rewarded you in the end. She married a man named Kelechi. He was tall, smooth talking, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make every woman feel like the only one in it. Ifeoma fell for him the way dry grass falls for fire fast, and without thinking of what would be left behind. For the first 2 years, life was sweet. Kelechi worked as a logistics manager for a transport company, and though the money was never plenty, they managed. They rented a small two-bedroom flat in Enugu. They laughed over pepper soup on Friday nights, and Ifeoma believed she had found her forever. But somewhere in the third year, Kelechi began to change. He started coming home late, then later, then not at all. He said it was work, he said it was stress. He said 100 things. And Ifeoma, because she loved him, because she wanted to believe him, swallowed every excuse like medicine, bitter but necessary. Then one Tuesday morning, she woke up and he was gone. No note, no phone call, just an empty wardrobe and a silence so loud it rang in her ears for months. She searched, she cried, she asked his friends, his family, even strangers who once knew him. Some said he had traveled abroad, others said he had simply moved on with his life. Nobody gave her a straight answer, and slowly, painfully, Ifeoma learned the hardest lesson a woman can learn, that sometimes the people who promise to stay are the very ones who teach you how to survive alone. She never got a divorce. There was no man to divorce, he had simply vanished, and Nigerian courts do not process the disappearance of a coward. So, on paper, she was still a wife. In her heart, she had already buried the marriage and mourned it quietly, the way you mourn something nobody else believes is dead. 2 years passed. Ifeoma rebuilt herself, brick by brick. She turned her love for cooking the same jollof rice that used to make Kelechi lick his fingers and beg for more into a small catering business. She started with birthday parties, then christenings, then small weddings. By the third year, Ife's kitchen was known in her community. Not famous, not rich, but respected. And to Ifeoma, that respect was worth more than any diamond Kelechi never gave her. So when a call came in for a big wedding job cooking for over 300 guests, a fat contract that would clear her rent for the whole year, she did not hesitate. Just tell me the venue and the date, she told the wedding planner. I will be there. She did not ask who the groom was. Why would she? My dear listener, let me pause here and ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room completely unaware that your whole world was about to shift? Because that is exactly what happened to Ifeoma on that Saturday morning. She arrived at the event center by 6 a.m. Her team of 5 assistants trailing behind her with pots, spices, and crates of soft drinks. The hall was already decorated gold and white balloons, fresh flowers, a banner stretched across the high table with the couple's names written in elegant cursive. Ifeoma was too busy barking instructions in the kitchen to even glance at that banner. Turn down that fire before the stew burns. Where is the extra pepper I asked for? Careful with that tray, it's hot. For hours, she moved like a soldier, sweating, tasting, correcting, commanding. This was her element. In the kitchen, she was not the abandoned wife, she was the boss. It was almost noon when the master of ceremonies' voice boomed through the hall speakers, announcing that the couple was about to make their grand entrance. Ifeoma, wiping sweat from her brow, stepped toward the kitchen door just to peek, just for a second, the way every caterer does to admire her own hard work laid out on the tables. And that was when she saw him walking in dressed in a sharp navy blue agbada, a wide smile stretched across his face, waving at cheering guests, Kelechi, her Kelechi, the man who vanished 3 years ago without a word. The man whose ring, though she no longer wore it, still sat in a small velvet box in her bedroom drawer because some part of her could never bring herself to throw it away. He was getting married to another woman. Ifeoma told me, well, she told the friend who eventually told me this story that in that moment, her body went numb, not hot with rage, not cold with sorrow, just numb. Like her spirit has stepped outside her body to watch what was happening from a safe distance because staying inside herself was too dangerous. She did not scream, she did not faint, she did not run out and cause a scene the way you might expect in a movie. She stood by that kitchen doorway in her apron stained with tomato stew, and she watched the man who was legally still her husband exchange rings with a woman who clearly had no idea that the caterer serving her wedding jollof was her groom's forgotten wife. My dear listener, what would you have done? Would you have marched out and torn off that white lace veil, screaming the truth for everyone to hear? Would you have collapsed into tears in front of 300 guests? Or would you have done what Ifeoma did, swallowed the scream, turned around, and walked back into that kitchen? Because that is exactly what she did. She walked back to her pots, she stirred the stew, she plated the rice, she smiled at her assistants when they asked if she was okay and told them, I'm fine, just tired. And for the rest of that afternoon, Ifeoma served food to the wedding of her own husband, and not one soul in that hall knew the storm raging quietly behind her eyes. Now, some of you listening might be thinking Ifeoma was foolish. She should have exposed him immediately. She should have burned the whole event down with her words. But wait, let me tell you why she didn't. Because Ifeoma had learned something in those 2 years of silence and rebuilding something many of us never learn until life forces it into us. She learned that revenge taken in the heat of humiliation rarely serves the person who was humiliated. It serves the drama, it serves the gossip. It gives everyone something to talk about for weeks, but it does not give you back your dignity. It does not give you back your peace. So instead, Ifeoma did something far more powerful. She waited. At the end of the event, when the bride, a sweet looking young woman named Chiamaka, came to the kitchen to personally thank the caterer for such a wonderful job, Ifeoma looked her dead in the eyes and said, calmly, gently, the way you would tell a child something difficult but necessary, before you leave today as a wife, I need 5 minutes of your time. Alone. Chiamaka, confused but polite, agreed. And in that back kitchen storage room, surrounded by empty pots and the smell of fried plantain, Ifeoma showed her the marriage certificate she had kept, the one she never had the money or the will to formally dissolve. She showed her old photos. She spoke calmly, without shouting, without tears, without cursing anyone. I am not here to ruin your day, Ifeoma told her. It has already happened, but you deserve to start your marriage with truth, not with a lie standing beside you in an agbada. I will not lie to you, my dear listener, what happened after that spread through that town like wildfire. Some people blamed Ifeoma, saying she should have spoken up earlier before the vows were exchanged. Others called her wicked for waiting until after the ceremony. But many, many more called her wise because she did not destroy the wedding out of spite. She simply handed the truth to the one person who deserved to have it before she built a life on a lie. Kalechi, when confronted, could not explain himself. He mumbled something about a fresh start, about believing Ifeoma had moved on, about wanting to forget the past. But excuses, my dear listener, are like water poured on dry sand. They disappear the moment they touch the truth. Chiamaka, to her credit, did not stay silent either. She confronted him that same night. And within days, that marriage, the one celebrated with 300 guests and gold balloons, quietly dissolved before it even truly began. And Ifeoma, she went home that night, removed her stained apron, sat on her small couch, and finally allowed herself to cry. Not from anger, but from release. From the exhausting weight of finally letting go of a man she had been unconsciously carrying for 3 long years. Today, Ifeoma's catering business has grown. Ifea's Kitchen now caters for events across 3 states. She never remarried Kelechi. Obviously, that chapter closed itself the moment he walked down that aisle without honesty. But she also never let bitterness poison the woman she had worked so hard to rebuild. She says, and I want you to hear this clearly, my dear listener. She says that they taught her something. No heartbreak before it ever could. Sometimes life doesn't send you closure through apology. Sometimes life sends you closure through exposure. You may not get to hear I'm sorry from the person who hurt you, but you will always get the chance to finally see clearly, and clarity, my dear, is its own kind of healing. So let me ask you before you go, because I always like to leave you with something to carry beyond the story. If you were Ifeoma, standing in that kitchen doorway, watching your forgotten husband marry someone else, would you have stayed silent forever? Or would you have found your own quiet, powerful way to hand the truth back to the world? Tell me in the comments below, my dear listener. I read every single one of them. And if this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that dignity is sometimes more powerful than revenge, do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe to Jam Jam Tales, and share it with someone who needs to hear tonight that truth always finds its way to the light, even if it takes its time getting there. Until next time, my dear friend, take care of your heart and never be afraid to open the door, even when you already know what's behind it.